does what the commissioners want for their own reason. That the rock wall is one. Jackie DeTore at a meeting came and said, gee, my son's a Boy Scout and they'd really love to have a rock wall to climb on. And then lo and behold, we're buying a rock wall for one of the parks. So they're
$110,000.
$110,000 because Jackie DeTore wants a place for her son and his friends to climb.
Is that with or without an insurance policy?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a very good question. They have a liability policy that covers the parks, but will it cover that? I'm dubious. I don't know. I would think the insurance company would balk at that.
So far, you've asked more questions than the board has.
Yeah. So, all right. So the full text of this letter is on our website. You can read it. Like I said, it's 5 pages long, and Judge Grendel has it in his hands.
So can you send a copy of that just to the papers?
That's been done. Papers have got a copy of it.
So it's just a matter of whether they
Yeah, I don't know if the papers will choose to publish it or not, but they do have a copy of the letter.
They published the cover letter where we gave them a summary of what was in the 5 pages. The 5 pages is attached, but it also drives people to the website if newspaper chooses not to publish.
Right. So, yeah, we're doing our best to get that out there. Yeah.
Anything else, anybody else? Speaking of liability, isn't there some added liability in allowing snowmobiles and all that sort of thing? I would think so.
Thank you.
They crash and then they sue the park for, not all of the claims that that's not a problem, but I'm not a his insurance.
That's an excellent question. That's a question that definitely to bring up to the park board. Oh. Yeah. This is so that the video can hear us. It's not amplifying our voice. Yeah, that's a great question, and we don't know the answer. We don't have the particulars on insurance, and we don't know that they've even looked into it because, of course, they shut us out of any of those discussions, or if they even discuss them at all. So.
I would say also regarding the wall, there are plenty of places in our parks where there are hills, steep hills by the streams and everywhere. If you want to go off the trails and climb, there are plenty of places to climb and let kids get dirty. My kids did that at Nursery Ring when they were little. They had legally events during the summer in Nursery Ring. You could do the same thing at our parks. We probably have more hills and cliffs than they do over at Nursery Ring. So why isn't that adequate instead of building a wall?
Actually, they prohibit us from going off trails in the parks. Yeah, it is in rules and regulations. And if you go to them and say that you saw something in the park that was not right, they say, were you on a trail when you saw that?
Is that in the regulations?
I think it is.
When we brought up the issue of the tree thing, the harvesting, it was probably one of the oldest issues in the park. Their first question was, were you off trail? You're harvesting our trees and you're worried about whether I'm walking off trail.
Yeah. You had a question.
If firearms are not permitted in parks, how do they validate hunting?
That is. She asked how do they validate hunting if firearms are not allowed in the parks, and hunting was handled by a separate section in their rules and regulations. Currently, they're not following their current regulations on the guns or the hunting. So, but the board doesn't seem to care about that.
They had opened up turkey hunting, and it was for youth. That's what I read in the papers. And I had called John Oro specifically to ask them how they knew they needed to limit the turkeys, the flocks, and I also called to say how many they took out, and I never got any response from them.
Well, it is still, the rules and regulations still say that hunting is for the control of targeted species for the benefit of, the park's the conservation within the parks, because there may be times when some targeted species need to be controlled so that they don't take out all the plants, or, for instance, like deer, et cetera. And various people have different opinions on that, but in the past, that has always been their rules and regulations. They haven't bothered to change that rule, but they are now bringing in much more recreational hunting, and the turkey hunt was an example of
I
that.
also talked to John Oro, tried to get hold of John Oro about that. I called it the Children's Turkey Hunting Program. And he wouldn't answer. And I kept asking at the park board meetings, and I did say, which wasn't very nice of me, but I did say, if you're not able to answer, I must assume you're doing something that's not legal. Well, he then called me that week and said he'd like to answer the question. He wouldn't put it in writing, but so Dave and I were both on the phone, and he said there is not a glut of turkeys. They're not doing it because there's too many turkeys. He said they're doing it because some fathers wanted their children to experience hunting. He did tell me they didn't get any, but I don't know that that's true. And he did say they're going to continue to do the program. This was a year ago.
And
That's the last I've heard from him.
I'm
So
surprised he admitted that.
I think he felt a little threatened by me. I don't know, it's kind of surprising, but when you don't answer a question, I mean, this is what I think we have to keep telling all our park boards. If you will not answer a question, we have to assume that the answer is something you're ashamed of or feel like you're going to be in trouble for. So,
interestingly enough, at sort of along the same lines, John Orris has gone to two groups, the wild turkey hunting folks and the Ducks Unlimited folks, and given them special permission to auction off hunting days in our parks. So the private groups are getting to use our parks and our animals for
And they-
fundraising for their group.
And they close the park when those groups are using it. So hundreds of public people who
And muskrats too.
Muskrats too? They're not as charismatic.
No,
Yeah.
John Morris belongs to that group, and he does it.
Another question?
I forget the name of the movie, but it was a very popular movie years ago where the two investigators said or were told to follow the money.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's
And I
the
think
Watergate movie.
if they're selling permits for hunting, that's a pretty good place to start.
That's why we need an accountant. We get the finances, but we're fairly confident to write the letters, have long tried to figure out the money flow, so.
And secondly, I don't want to overextend this, but I think it would be kind of a nice friendly thing to do for the directors of the park that are misbehaving, to remind them that there's a lot of hungry attorneys out there that are going to scarf up the first opportunity on that rock wall.
It was so cold the other day, I saw an attorney with his hands in his own pockets.
speaking as an attorney.
I'm sorry, you had another, what was that?
First, to say one
Let's
thing,
just-
that what you just said is very important, and helping us, and brings up the idea that we have a lot of people who are helping us with little tidbits of information. I heard this, I saw that, this happened to me over at the grocery store, my friend had, and we're getting those kinds of things, sometimes secondhand, and then we take that piece of the puzzle and we put it together with a bunch of other things. We have been archiving data and information since August of 2014. So if you want to write a letter about information, we probably got the information factually. If you can give us more information and help us put these puzzles together and create a situation where we can follow the money better, that would be a great help. So if you can do that, do it.
Okay, but he had a question he was.
Number one, what's with the new group that Crandell Watson formed to oblige the board?
Well, now, there's another really good question. Another group supervised by him to supervise his already hand-picked group. Doesn't sound like a wise use of time or effort to me.
Can I explain a couple things
The
about
same
that?
thing about the surveys were supposed to be done.
Yeah, he's following the pattern that was set in Mahoning County. They've had some similar problems down there where their parks management has kind of taken a left turn and gone off and done things that were basically against the public interest, okay? And they got a similar response of people showing up to meetings and demanding answers and so on. So what they did to try to calm the waters a little bit, is set up a whole series of committees, basically to kind of keep everybody busy, you know, and make them think like they're having input.
He's gonna appoint who's on the board though?
Well, right, he would appoint who's on the advisory committee, and he also appoints who's on the board. And probably his objective was to get, you know, like 2 of our group to be on the 7-person committee. And of course, we would always be in the minority, so nothing would actually happen. But he could then say that, well, you had your chance to have input and you were outvoted. So that's the scheme, and it's pretty transparent, but that's what it is.